Breaking news. After months of fierce speculation, whispered rumors, and mounting pressure from both the public and the Sussex camp, the silence from Buckingham Palace has finally been broken. New clarifications have just emerged regarding the royal standing of Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, triggering shockwaves through the monarchy. For weeks, royal watchers have been asking one question: why did King Charles III wait so long to address the status of his California-based grandchildren? Now, palace sources are responding, and the reality behind this decision is far more complex and politically charged than anyone realized. This isn't just a simple update to a family tree. It is a calculated constitutional maneuver that defines the future of the slimmed-down monarchy. To understand the gravity of this moment, we must look behind the gilded gates of the palace, where tension has been rising since the very moment Queen Elizabeth II took her final breath. According to insiders, the delay wasn't an oversight. It was a strategic pause. Senior aides and constitutional experts have been locked in hidden negotiations, debating the implications of the 1,917 letters patent established by King George V. While the rules stated that the grandchildren of the monarch automatically inherit the titles of prince and princess, the unique situation of the Sussexes living abroad, non-working, and publicly critical of the institution created an unprecedented dilemma for the new king. The atmosphere inside the palace has been described as tense and cautious. Officials knew that any misstep could ignite a fresh media war or fuel accusations of vindictiveness. The clarification that has emerged today confirms that while the king is willing to honor the constitutional birthright of Archie and Lilibet, there are strict boundaries being drawn around what those titles actually mean in practice. This is not the warm embrace of a grandfather simply welcoming his grandchildren into the fold. It is a rigid adherence to protocol designed to protect the crown's image while avoiding a total diplomatic breakdown with Prince Harry and Meghan. Sources indicate that the decision to acknowledge the titles was finalized only after intense internal debate regarding the optics. The king faced a nearly impossible choice: deny the titles and risk looking petty and vindictive in the eyes of the world, or grant them and risk confusing the public about the status of non-working royals. What we are seeing now is the result of that high-stakes balancing act. The palace is confirming the status, but the subtext of their response speaks volumes. It is a confirmation wrapped in caveats, signaling that while Archie and Lilibet are royalty by blood and law, their place in the operational machinery of the monarchy remains non-existent. This distinction between status and service is the key to understanding the new clarifications that are reshaping the royal landscape today. To fully grasp the magnitude of this palace confirmation, we must peel back the layers of history to a specific decree that has dictated royal status for over a century. The root of this entire controversy lies in the letters patent issued by King George V in 1917. At the time, George V, much like King Charles today, was concerned about the size of the royal family and sought to limit who could hold the title of prince or princess. Under these strict rules, the coveted HRH titles were restricted to the children of the sovereign, the children of the sovereign's sons, and the eldest living son of the eldest son of the Prince of Wales. It was a rigid system designed to keep the core monarchy small, exclusive, and manageable. For years, this ancient rule acted as a barrier for Archie and Lilibet. When Archie was born in 2019, he was the great-grandson of the monarch, not the grandson. Therefore, under the 1917 convention, he was absolutely not entitled to be a prince at birth. This is why, for the first few years of his life, he was known simply as Master Archie Mountbatten-Windsor. At the time, the world and perhaps the Sussexes themselves viewed this through a lens of potential slight or exclusion, but constitutionally, the palace was following the letter of the law. However, the situation for Prince William's children was different. Queen Elizabeth II had stepped in back in 2012 to issue a new letters patent specifically to ensure all of William's children would have titles, not just Prince George. This disparity in intervention laid the groundwork for the feelings of inequality that would later explode into public view. Everything changed the moment Queen Elizabeth II passed away on the 8th of September 2022. In that instant, the royal chessboard was reset. King Charles III ascended the throne, and Archie and Lilibet moved up the generational ladder. They transformed from great-grandchildren of the monarch to the grandchildren of the monarch. According to the 1,917 rules, this shift should have triggered an immediate and automatic change in their status. They became eligible for the titles of Prince and Princess, and the style of Her or His Royal Highness, not by a gift from the king, but by hereditary right. Yet, what followed was not a celebration of this new status, but a deafening silence. While Prince William and Catherine's titles were updated to Prince and Princess of Wales almost immediately, the palace website and official communications left Archie and Lilibet in a state of limbo. This gap between the moment the right was constitutionally triggered and the moment the palace finally acknowledged it is where the real story lies. It suggests that behind the scenes, a fierce debate was raging about whether the new king should issue a new letters patent to block these titles, effectively changing the rules to exclude the Sussex children in service of a slimmed-down monarchy. The confirmation we are seeing now is the result of Charles deciding not to pull that trigger, stepping back from a decision that would have been seen as a direct hostile act against his own grandchildren. To understand why the palace's recent confirmation is so charged with tension, we must revisit the moment the private dispute went nuclear. The interview with Oprah Winfrey in March 2021 didn't just air family grievances. It fundamentally reframed the title debate as a matter of safety and discrimination. Sitting in that California garden, Meghan made a claim that sent shockwaves through the institution. She asserted that while she was pregnant, there were active conversations inside the palace about changing the rules specifically to deny Archie a title. But the most explosive part was her linkage of this bureaucratic decision to concerns and conversations about how dark Archie's skin might be when he was born. This narrative shattered the palace's defense that this was merely about the 1917 convention. Meghan challenged the official line directly, stating they were told Archie wouldn't get security and wouldn't get a title, breaking with protocol. For the Sussexes, the title was never just a vanity label. It was a shield. In their view, holding the status of prince meant an automatic entitlement to state-funded security, a lifeline they felt was being stripped away from their son before he even took his first breath. The interview revealed that for Harry and Meghan, the prince title was a proxy for protection, in a world they viewed as increasingly hostile and dangerous. Prince Harry's perspective added a layer of desperate urgency to these negotiations. He wasn't just fighting for a name, he was fighting against a history he feared was repeating itself. He spoke openly about the trauma of his mother, Princess Diana, and the terror of seeing his wife subjected to the same brutal media culture without the palace's protection. When the family's official security detail was removed after they stepped back from royal duties, Harry described a feeling of total abandonment, leaving them vulnerable and cut off. He revealed that the situation was so critical they had to rely on filmmaker Tyler Perry for a safe house and security during their transition to California, just to keep his family alive. This background context makes the palace's recent silence even more damaging. For months after Charles became king, the fear in the Sussex camp was likely that the conversations Meghan warned about were finally becoming policy, that Charles would issue a new letters patent to formalize their exclusion. The palace wasn't just dealing with a constitutional update. They were navigating a minefield of allegations regarding racism and abandonment. Every day that Archie and Lilibet remained Master and Miss on the website fueled the narrative that the institution was indeed treating the mixed-race grandchildren differently. The eventual confirmation of the titles, therefore, wasn't just a legal formality. It was a necessary move to defuse a narrative that threatened to brand the new king's reign as discriminatory before it had even truly begun. The official announcement from Buckingham Palace didn't come with fanfare, but with the cold precision of a legal decree. Released through carefully controlled channels, the statement was the product of weeks of agonizing drafting by senior aides and constitutional lawyers. It finally confirmed that Archie and Lilibet would be formally recognized as Prince Archie of Sussex and Princess Lilibet of Sussex. But the specific wording was deliberate. It emphasized that this status was a recognition of established constitutional protocols under the 1917 rules, explicitly distancing King Charles from the appearance of making a personal gift or a new determination. The message from the institution was clear. This is the law, not a favor. However, the devil is in the details of this new arrangement. Palace insiders describe the finalized decision as a middle path, a strategic compromise designed to honor tradition, while acknowledging the awkward reality of two American-raised children holding senior British titles. The agreement outlines a stark separation between status and function. While their names have been updated on the official line of succession and their legal documents will bear the royal style, the palace noted that the use of these titles in daily life remains entirely at the discretion of the parents. This is a pragmatic concession, acknowledging that being addressed as Princess Lilibet might sound jarringly out of place in a California classroom or social setting. But the most critical part of this new clarification concerns what the titles do not bring. The palace has drawn a hard line in the sand regarding the tangible perks that Harry and Meghan seemingly equated with the titles. The statement clarifies that this change in status comes with absolutely no expectation of royal duties, no official roles, and crucially, no access to the sovereign grant. The distinction is brutal but effective. Archie and Lilibet are princes of the blood, but they are private citizens in practice. Harry and Meghan will continue to bear all costs for their children's upbringing, education, and lifestyle. Most significantly, the announcement addressed the security issue with a calculated vagueness that effectively shuts down the Sussex's demands. The palace confirmed that British taxpayers will not fund ongoing security for the children in the United States. The prestigious prince title does not unlock the automatic 24/7 police protection Harry fought for. Instead, the Metropolitan Police will only assess their security needs on a strictly case-by-case basis during official visits to the United Kingdom. This cements the reality that while they have won the battle for the name, they have lost the war for the institutional shield that traditionally comes with it. To fully appreciate the complexity of this decision, we must step into the shoes of King Charles III. Ascending the throne at age 73, he arrived with a decades-long manifesto, a slimmed-down monarchy. His vision was clear: reduce the number of working royals, cut the costs, and focus the spotlight on the direct line of succession. However, the situation with Archie and Lilibet presented a paradox that threatened to derail his entire agenda before it even gained momentum. The king found himself caught between his strategic vision for the institution and the volatile reality of his fractured family. Charles possessed the absolute authority to stop this. As the sovereign and the fountain of honor, he could have issued a new letters patent the moment he took the throne, rewriting the 1917 rules to explicitly exclude non-working royals from holding prince and princess titles. It would have been a decisive move toward his streamlined vision. Yet, he hesitated. Why? Because the political cost of exercising that power was deemed too high. Advisors warned that changing the rules specifically to exclude the children of his younger son would not look like modernization. It would look like punishment. The personal context here is heartbreakingly difficult. Charles's relationship with Harry had deteriorated into open warfare following the Oprah interview and the release of Harry's memoir, which painted the king as emotionally distant and the institution as callous. Despite the pain of these public betrayals, Charles had to separate the father from the monarch. He understood that denying titles to Archie and Lilibet, the only mixed-race grandchildren in the family's history, would be interpreted through a devastating lens. It would have validated the Sussex's most damaging claims about exclusion and bias within the palace walls. Ultimately, Charles realized that his slimmed-down monarchy didn't actually require stripping the children of their birthright. His advisors successfully argued that the core goal was about reducing the cost and the workforce, not the titles themselves. Since Archie and Lilibet were never going to be on the payroll or the balcony, Granting the titles cost the monarchy nothing in financial terms, but denying them would have cost the monarchy its reputation for fairness. The king's decision was less about a warm family reunion and more about political inoculation, removing a weapon from the Sussex's arsenal while keeping his own hands clean. When the decision finally came down from London, it didn't arrive at the Sussex sanctuary in Montecito via a warm, grandfatherly phone call. Instead, it was a piece of intelligence picked up by staff monitoring palace channels, alerting the couple the moment the official machinery began to turn. For Harry and Meghan, this was not a moment of pure celebration, but a moment of strategic calculation. They knew their response had to be perfect. They needed to acknowledge the victory without appearing desperate for the institution's validation, and they needed to assert their children's status while maintaining their brand of independence. The statement released by their spokesperson was a masterclass in PR framing. It didn't thank the king for his benevolence. Instead, it used a very specific, powerful word: birthright. The couple emphasized that the titles of prince and princess were not gifts bestowed by Charles, but rights inherited the moment their grandfather became king. By framing it this way, Harry and Meghan subtly shifted the power dynamic. They were telling the world that the palace hadn't given them anything. The palace had simply stopped blocking what was already theirs. It was a message of vindication, suggesting that the delay had been an obstruction of justice rather than a procedural pause. Behind closed doors, the emotions were likely far more mixed. Sources close to the couple suggest a combination of relief and deep frustration. Relief, because their children would finally stand on equal footing with their cousins, George, Charlotte, and Louis. But frustration, because it had taken months of public speculation and private tension to get the palace to act, a struggle that Harry likely felt echoed his mother's own battles for recognition. They saw the delay not as due diligence, but as a reluctance that forced them to fight for what should have been automatic. Crucially, the Sussexes moved quickly to define what this new reality would look like on American soil, anticipating the criticism that they were chasing titles while rejecting duties. They clarified that while the titles would be used in formal settings, Archie and Lilibet would not be walking around Montecito demanding to be addressed as Your Royal Highness. They are prince and princess on paper, but in the classroom and the playground, they remain simply Archie and Lilibet. Furthermore, they addressed the elephant in the room security head-on. By stating they would continue to fund their own private protection, they preemptively silenced critics who argued the titles were a grab for taxpayer money. It was a calculated move to secure the status while neutralizing the backlash. As the news of the titles rippled out from London to Los Angeles, it didn't just generate headlines. It ignited a firestorm of debate that revealed just how deeply divided the public remains on the Sussex issue. For the loyal Sussex squad and their global supporters, this moment was hailed as a definitive victory against the establishment. They interpreted the palace's capitulation as proof that public pressure works. To them, King Charles didn't give these titles out of the kindness of his heart. He was forced to hand them over to avoid being branded a hypocrite on the world stage. They pointed to the agonizing delay as evidence of the very bias Harry had warned about, celebrating the confirmation as a hard-won vindication of the couple's refusal to be silenced. However, the reaction from royal critics and a significant portion of the British public was scathing. The accusation leveled against Harry and Meghan was immediate and sharp. They were accused of wanting to have it both ways. The central argument here is one of perceived hypocrisy. Critics asked a pointed question. If the royal institution is as toxic, damaging, and structurally racist as the couple claimed in their interviews and documentaries, why would they fight so hard to attach its highest labels of prestige to their innocent children? It seemed to many like a contradiction, rejecting the burden of duty and the constraints of the palace, yet clinging tightly to the feudal status that the institution provides. This skepticism reflects a broader confusion about the couple's endgame. By accepting the titles of prince and princess for children raised in a republic that fought a war to reject monarchy, Harry and Meghan fueled the narrative that they are interested in the brand of royalty, but not the service of royalty. Commentators argued that if Archie and Lilibet are truly to be private citizens in California, burdening them with heavy royal styles serves no practical purpose other than to monetize their heritage. This clash of perspectives between those who see a fight for birthright and those who see a grab for relevance has turned the title announcement into a referendum on the couple's integrity since leaving the UK. Beyond the immediate headlines, the confirmation of these titles sets a fascinating and complex precedent that will ripple through the monarchy for decades. Constitutional experts are already calling this a seismic shift in how the royal family defines itself. By validating the titles of non-working royals living permanently abroad, the palace has inadvertently highlighted the stark contrast between the two branches of the family. We are now witnessing the creation of a transatlantic aristocracy, one side rooted in duty, protocol, and service in London, and the other rooted in celebrity, privacy, and commercial enterprise in California. The most poignant aspect of this decision concerns the relationship between Archie and Lilibet and their royal cousins, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. While they now share the same prestigious prefixes, their lives could not be more different. The Wales children are being raised at the very heart of the institution, groomed from birth to understand the weight of the crown and their future roles within it. In contrast, the Sussex children are growing up thousands of miles away, detached from the rituals, the history, and the daily reality of the monarchy. The shared title of prince acts as a bridge on paper, but in reality, the gulf between their worlds is widening every day. This geographical and cultural separation raises uncomfortable questions about the future cohesion of the family. Will Archie and Lilibet truly feel like royals, or will the titles simply be curious artifacts of a heritage they barely know? Royal commentators predict that family gatherings, if they happen at all, will be fraught with tension, bringing together children who have been raised with fundamentally different values and expectations. The risk is that the titles become a source of confusion rather than connection, a label that separates them from their American peers without truly integrating them with their British kin. Furthermore, their position in the line of succession remains a constitutional headache. Archie and Lilibet currently sit at 6th and 7th in line to the throne, remarkably high positions for individuals who will likely never perform a day of official service. While history suggests they will gradually move down the list as Prince William's children have their own families, for now, they remain constitutionally significant. This creates a unique anomaly, valid heirs to the British throne being raised in a republic, potentially without any deep allegiance to the system they are born to represent. It is a situation without modern precedent, testing the flexibility of an ancient institution in a globalized world. Ultimately, amidst the constitutional debates and the media frenzy, we must remember the two people most profoundly affected by this decision are the ones with no say in it: Archie and Lilibet themselves. By confirming these titles, King Charles and the Sussexes have handed these children a complex dual identity that may prove to be as much a burden as it is a privilege. They are now destined to grow up as American princes, a contradiction in terms that will shape every aspect of their future. Imagine the reality of their coming years. They will attend American schools, surrounded by peers raised on democratic values, where titles of nobility are often viewed with curiosity or skepticism rather than reverence. Yet, on their passports, and in the eyes of history, they carry the weight of a 1,000-year-old British institution. As they mature, they will have to form their own understanding of what it means to be a prince or princess of a realm they barely visit, and of a family they rarely see. This is not just a quirky biographical footnote. It is an identity crisis waiting to happen. Royal experts warn that this unique status could become a golden cage. While Harry and Meghan have fought to give their children the option of royal status, arguing it is their birthright to decide later, the reality is that the label has now been applied. Growing up in Montecito with British royal titles will inevitably set them apart, potentially isolating them or subjecting them to a different kind of scrutiny than even their celebrity neighbors face. The question remains, will these titles open doors, or will they become heavy artifacts of a heritage that feels increasingly foreign to their daily lives? Furthermore, there is the looming question of their future relationship with the monarchy itself. When they reach adulthood, Archie and Lilibet will have to make a choice that their parents have already struggled with: to embrace the institution or to reject it. Will they try to leverage their royal status for careers in the U.S., fueling further accusations of commercializing the crown? Or will they walk away entirely, rendering the current battle for their titles meaningless? The decision made in London today has ensured that their lives will never be normal, but it has not guaranteed that they will ever truly feel royal. They are being handed a legacy that is fractured, inheriting the prestige of the crown along with the bitter family feud that surrounds it. In the grand chess game of the British monarchy, the decision to confirm Archie and Lilibet's titles was never really about the children themselves. It was a calculated move about the survival of the institution in the 21st century. King Charles III, in his first major test regarding family conflict, chose the path of least resistance to preserve the image of the crown. By granting the titles, he neutralized a potent narrative of discrimination and double standards that could have plagued his reign for years. He deprived the Sussex camp of a victimhood narrative while firmly holding the line on the things that actually matter to the taxpayer: money and security. This saga serves as a definitive case study for the slimmed-down monarchy Charles envisioned. It establishes a new, somewhat ruthless precedent. You can have the name, you can have the prestige, but without the service, you are essentially cut off from the machinery of the state. The king has effectively drawn a circle around the working royals, the core team, and placed everyone else, regardless of their title, on the outside looking in. It is a pragmatic, unsentimental approach to a family business that can no longer afford to carry passengers. However, the long-term health of the monarchy depends on more than just constitutional loopholes. It depends on public perception. The British public's continued support rests on the belief that the system operates with both wisdom and compassion. While this decision solves the immediate administrative problem, it does little to heal the deep emotional fractures that threaten the family's unity. The titles are now official, but the relationships remain broken. The monarchy has adapted to the legal challenge, but the human cost of this conflict remains unpaid, leaving a lingering question about whether an institution built on heredity can survive when the family at its heart is so visibly divided. Now, the verdict turns to you. Do you think King Charles made the right call by confirming these titles, or should he have changed the rules to support a truly slimmed-down monarchy? Do you believe Archie and Lilibet will view these British titles as a gift or a burden as they grow up in America? This decision has rewritten the rulebook, but the final chapter of the Sussex drama is far from written. If you found this breakdown valuable, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth analysis of the powers behind the throne. Watch the video on your screen now to understand the next crisis facing the king.